Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over everything you need to know about graphic design. So in this video, I'm going to be going over exactly what graphic design is, what school and schoolwork would look like if you're going to school for graphic design, and also what life after college looks like. I've been a graphic designer for, is it like 3 or 4 years now officially? This is my experience. Then hopefully I could help show you what to expect after college. So to start off, I'm going to go over a little bit of a background on why I decided to become a graphic designer. Stephanie asked, what made you want to become a graphic designer? And basically ever since I was small, I loved doing art. Like everyone knew that I was just very much a creative person. I was always drawing things. I was always making stuff, like putting little booklets together and like coming up with, I don't know, I was just very artistic and everyone could see that. I asked my dad because I really liked art. I was like, what can I do that's related to art that will allow me to have a steady income? And my dad suggested graphic design, and he told me a little bit about what it is, and I just thought it was perfect. So what exactly is graphic design? When you're a graphic designer, you are a creative problem solver, and your job is finding a creative solution for someone else's needs. An example of graphic design out in the real world is like packaging, movie poster design, restaurant menus, graphics on the web, stuff like that. Basically everything that takes a lot of creative process and thought, like everything out in the world, that was made by a graphic designer or an art director. So going over the questions about like, should I take graphic design? What exactly is it? I'm thinking about doing it. Meredith asked, how do you do your lettering and designing? I am going to go over that later, but the part I'm going to answer in this section right now is, would you recommend being a graphic designer? Honestly, that is totally up to you. You have to be the judge of that. If you're creative and you know art is your passion and you feel like you have an eye for design. I knew all of this ever since I was very small. Lots of people have different tastes, but you have to be true to yourself and know like if you really like it, then you should pursue it. Going to school, we saw a lot of people go into graphic design and then drop out. Do not take graphic design if you want to start your own t-shirt companies. Over half of the people that went there were like, I want to start my own t-shirt company, then dropped out. It's so much more than just starting your own t-shirt company. You're going to be learning about type, you're going to be learning about layout. It's more intense than just learning about the programs on how to use it. It's learning about everything that goes into design. I personally like doing it because it's a challenge. Victoria Janet said, this is amazing because I just took my first graphic design course and immediately was like, yep, this is what I love. And basically it kind of solidifies whether or not you want to do it. Is if you just know, you know. Try looking up classes or looking up graphic design work online. That'll also help you get a feel for what exactly it is. So now we are going to be going over misconceptions. I saw a lot of comments online saying like, if I want to be a graphic designer, should I learn to code as soon as possible? Did you take graphic design classes before starting college? If I don't know how to draw, can I still apply for a graphic design major? I remember I was so scared when I first started going, but then you have to think of it this way. It's scary because you don't know what's to come and what it entails, but you're going there to learn. Like you're not expected to go into a graphic design course knowing everything because everyone is in the same boat as you. No one knows what's going on. A few people may have taken like graphic design classes in high school, but that's just like very beginning, if anything, and it's not even that much experience. Like they may know how to work the programs, but there's so much more to it that no one in the fundamental classes has learned yet, and you're going to be taking it very slow. If you don't know anything about graphic design, but you know it's something you want to do because you love creating, then don't even worry about it. You don't need any experience. They will help you with literally everything. It's fine. So now we're going to talk about schoolwork. Nika Gabrielle asks, hi Jasmine, where'd you go to college? Do you do your lettering on your iPad or do you own a drawing tablet? I'm going to get to that whole thing afterwards, but right now I'm going to talk about school. Different art schools teach different things. I went to the Art Institute, and this is basically what my experience was like. You start off with basic classes. The classes get more involved and advanced as you go along. Like we took grids and layout, typography, package design, branding, which is like logos and corporate identity type things, advanced illustration, which is basically like where I learned Illustrator. Those are the types of classes that you'll learn. Also, something to note about schoolwork is the projects will take a long time. Be prepared to pull a lot of all-nighters, even though people from the outside are like, oh, you're going to school for graphic design. It's not even that hard. Like, it is hard. I'm going to use the example of math. Math is very difficult, but at the end of the day, you have one final solution. There's one answer that works. Graphic design is different. There's so many different options for one thing. Like, it takes a long time and it takes a lot of thought if you're really passionate about it. But basically, projects will take a very long time. Also, such a big part of graphic design is learning to take critiques. I had this one teacher, Mr. Hansen. I remember stories of like ex-military would show up and put their work on the wall for everyone to see, and he would straight up be like, this is wrong because of this. Why did you do this? Because this and this. And he would send them out crying. Basically, if you're going to graphic design, you need to learn how to take critiques. What can I do to make this better? That's basically what critiques are. Don't ever take critiques personally. It'll really help improve your work, because if not, it'll just always stay the same and you will not improve. I have a few friends that would not listen to the teachers. The teachers would tell them, you should change this because of this, and then they would think that they know more than the teachers, or they were like hurt from it and they would start crying. They're out in the world right now and not doing what they went to school for. So if you're going to graphic design, be prepared to have some thick skin or grow some thick skin, because it will be hard at first to like hear all these critiques. It'll make things a lot easier and you will grow so much more as a designer. So now we're going to talk about like building skills and motivation in graphic design. Lauren asked, what are the best resources for aspiring graphic designers? Inspiration, like websites like Behance, The Dyeline. The Dyeline was started by one of the alumni at my school that I went to. Like now it's like one of the biggest, is it the biggest? I think it's the biggest package design website. And yeah, that's a great site for package design inspiration, also just design inspiration. And also Dribble with 3 B's. Find what inspires you and then find the supplies in order to do the things that inspire you. Next, we'll be talking about internships. Victoria Janet asked, tips on when is a good time to apply for internships and tips on getting an internship. What worked for you? I'd say the best time to get an internship is when you're in school. Maybe like midway to like towards the end is a good time to get internships. So in order to get an internship, you need a portfolio. Don't stress out about this way too much while you're in school. Don't worry about it till like midway through schooling or so, because like the fundamental projects that you do are most likely not going to end up as portfolio pieces. But keep your portfolio in mind as you're doing projects, because you never know later on what can turn into a portfolio piece. They know that you don't have any experience. So as long as you have good school projects that show your design style and what you can do, that's what matters. It's also very good motivation to keep doing well in school. Also, in order to get an internship, you need a resume. Put together a nice one. It doesn't have to be like superly over designed. Even to get my job that I have right now, I didn't have a crazy resume. I just had like a nicely designed resume that was pleasing to the eye, and that's all you need, I think. Also, going back to like why I really suggest getting an internship, they make you realize what type of company you would like to work for. I only took one internship before I graduated with my bachelor's degree. I worked for this company called Vizio. They make all those TVs and stuff like that, and it was a really good company, but it was really extremely boring. Not because it was a big company, but because their branding was so specific that I was literally doing the same thing over and over and over. Every time I would try to like do something very creative, they'd be like, this is cool, but just, you know, put red text on gradient background and you're good to go. And I was like, really? It was just really boring. And even though I loved the company, I did not see myself working there. Whereas now I am working at Taco Bell headquarters. I love it because their projects are so versatile. I'm never doing the same thing over and over and over every single day. There's something new. And I mean, Vizio and Taco Bell are big companies, but their branding is different. So take internships in things that you think you might like to do, and then you could get a feel of what the work environment is like. You could go to your next interviews and be like, what is the work environment like here, and what can I expect in a job? And I highly suggest doing it. Most of the time, if they really like you, they will offer you a job afterwards. Before I graduated, I decided to quit the internship just to like focus on schoolwork. So I told them that, and he was like, you know, we really like your work here. We like your work ethic. If you want a job, I'd definitely be willing to take you on here. And if not, I'm willing to write you a letter of recommendation to give to anybody. Yeah, so most of the time, if they really like you, they'll hire you on full-time afterwards. I didn't personally do that, but my friend Matt did that. He works at Acorn, and they gave him a really good starting pay because they didn't want to lose him. So either way, it just is a very helpful experience. So now I'm going to be talking about work and career, what life is like after college. Jessica asked, internships and what it's like working for a big company versus freelancing. So I talked about internships, so freelancing versus working for a big company. When you freelance, you definitely have like a lot of freedom. You don't really have a set schedule besides the projects that you take on and those deadlines, but it can also be very hard to find clients at times if you don't know how to network well. I'm not the best at networking. Leo is very good at networking. He gets freelance jobs all the time. So if you're good at like connecting with people and finding work, then go ahead, because like in order to be successful and have steady income, you need to like really put yourself out there and be very hardworking and just be very self-motivated. Also, working with clients can be tough and sometimes unreliable. Clients can sometimes take advantage of you, and that's the reality of doing graphic design out in the real world. I don't really suggest working with friends, because I had some friends that didn't even like pay me back, and then they moved away. And I was just like, where's this money for all of the work I put in for you? I know we're friends, but like, what the heck? So it's like a little bit awkward, but freelancing, if you're good at it, go for it. So working for a big company, you usually work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week. The upside is you have steady income. So you have a steady cash flow coming in, you can pay all your bills, you don't really have to worry about that. You're good to go. You will like it depending on your taste and if the company you are working for is your style. Honestly, I bounced around a lot before I found the job that I'm at right now. First, I worked for this company called Nail Art Society, and I loved the company, but it was just so small and I was not getting good pay at all. It was very random and sparse payments, and just like, am I getting paid right now? Am I coming in? I really loved the people working there. It just was not very reliable, even though I wish it was, because that was such a fun job. After that, I ended up working at this small little company in LA, and it was like the worst experience of my life. They were like the shadiest people. I won't say which race they are, but they only hired people of that specific race. Me and the other designer and the social media person who also came from Nail Art Society. All three of us worked in this small, cramped, tiny little room with no sunlight. The rest of the people of the same race worked in this really big, bright room with lots of windows and air conditioning that worked, and we were just on this other little room, and I was like, maybe this is like the design room. But come later, another person that they hired on as a designer, she had no experience. She did not know what she was doing. She was supposed to work in the room with all the creative people, but since she was of that race, she ended up going in the other room. And then I was sitting in the other room with no sunlight and getting crap pay. Yeah, we were just sitting in there like, what the heck are we doing? And they would say, if you work harder and you go faster, then we will give you maybe like a 50-cent raise. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? It was just not good. And every time we would try to ask for better pay, they were like, we don't have the budget. But then we would go on their Instagram and see them like buying Prada bags over the weekend. It's just like, are you kidding me? This is not a good job. The other job I had after that was also for a company. It was a small-ish company. I was like, this is a really cute company. I think I would have fun with this style. So I ended up going there. But it was so weird because after a couple months, one of the sisters was in India. So she lived over there and the other sister lived here and worked at the actual company. But the sister in India, she just loved to micromanage. She started like, hey, you know what? Let's Google Hangouts and we can talk about this. So I was like, sure. So it started off like maybe once a week and then slowly increased to like every single day I was Skyping at weird times. Like I had to come in like an hour or two earlier than everybody else just so that this sister from India could micromanage every single little thing that I was doing. She would basically just sit there and look at my screen and be like, move that over to the left. Okay, now move that over to the right. Make the font bigger. Actually, you know what? Do it the way you had before. Actually change it. And we would sit there for like 4 to 5 hours before she went to bed. And it was just the worst experience. I freaking hated my job there. After a few months of doing that, Leo actually worked at Taco Bell headquarters before me, and he mentioned that they were looking for a new graphic designer and they hired me. It's a company that I really love. I'm doing something different every single day. The main job that I was brought on for is to help with PowerPoint, which sounds boring, but it's actually like so cool. I wanted this job because I get to travel about like 3 to 4 times a year, and I help out with the big dogs at Taco Bell. They give presentations to the franchisees who run the stores, and basically me and Brad, who I work closely with, we brand all of the staging and all that stuff, and we come up with the designs for the presentations that they give to the franchisees. And it's like, that's my all-time favorite thing about working where I work. So that's what I ended up liking. I do like other aspects of it. What I like about Taco Bell is that I can work on different things, and they do packaging. So if I ever want to do packaging, I can tell them, hey, I want to work on packaging, and they'll throw me on a package design project. It took a lot of trial and error to get where I am now, but as long as you find a company that you really like, it'll all be worth it in the end. Sky Collins asks, how experienced do you have to be to get a good job in graphic design? I actually kind of touched on this already, but it depends on the company and it depends on what you can provide to the company, I guess. In the job that I had in LA, there was that girl who didn't really have much experience, but then also they were not the best company. At the job I'm at right now, they've hired straight out of school with a bachelor's degree. It does help if you've had an internship or some sort of experience, like if you do freelance on the side before you get out, that shows that you're able to like work with people. That's a suggestion that you could do. It really helps if you have a degree. The lowest one I believe is associates, but it's even better if you have a bachelor's degree. Not all companies will take associate degrees seriously, and also if you have a bachelor's degree, you're more likely to get better pay. Lauren asked, do you prefer working with a company over freelancing? I love working with a company now that I found one that I really, really like. The only thing that I don't like is going to work from 9 to 5. It can be draining at times, but as long as the work you're doing is rewarding to you, that's all that matters, and I really like the work that I do. So now I'm going to be talking about what a day at work would look like as a graphic designer. This has been basically true for every single graphic design job I've had in the last few years. I get into work, usually they'll have like meetings and talk about like the projects that are going on and who needs to do what. Sometimes you'll have someone who assigns the project. At this job, her name is Vivian, and she will just go around taking people's requests for design work and she'll distribute them to the different designers. You'll try to brainstorm ideas for the project. You'll come up with a few initial concepts, and before you send out those concepts, go try to talk to other people like, hey, what do you think of this? How can I make it better? Which ideas are going in the right direction? So after you talk to those people, you'll put together your initial concepts and you'll send them off. For me, I hand them to Vivian and she'll go into a meeting. So after that, you'll get back their feedback and you'll know where to go from there. Sometimes they love it, sometimes they love half of the things you do, and sometimes they're like, actually, I don't want to do this. Let's go in a completely different direction. Sometimes projects can be really easy and they're like, perfect, it's great, send it off. And other times you'll be doing revisions for weeks on the same project and you'll want to punch the people in the face. They're just like, make up your freaking mind, I've been working on this project for a whole month now. Sometimes you'll get to work on things that you really like and you'll get to go crazy with like your style and do whatever you want. The clients are like, yeah, I don't know anything, that's why we have you, the designers. And other times the clients are like, I feel like I have the graphic design knowledge, I just don't have a computer and know how to work it. So ultimately, they are the ones paying you and they want something a specific way, so sometimes you'll just have to give it to them. Just don't put it in your portfolio. I'm just trying to be honest, but honestly, I really like graphic design and I think it's very, very fun. So I hope I'm not steering people away or scaring people, because I'm just trying to show you what it's really like in the real world, because some people don't know. So I'm just trying to open up that side of it, because it's not just like playing on the computer every day. Karen asked me, describe your creative process / how you approach your initial idea generation. Do you often find it difficult to render verbal information into a visual element? Love, a little graphic designer to be. If you didn't already know, Karen, I've mentioned her in a few vlogs. She is Leo's little sister and she is now going to school for graphic design. But initial idea generation, when you're in school, teachers will always suggest just sketching everything out right off the bat. Just sketch, sketch, sketch. Sometimes I'll write down a list. Sometimes I'll just go straight into Illustrator and just play with different ways to do it. Depending on the project, I'll take those 3 different approaches. Find out what works best for you and do that. Usually the first few ideas that come to mind are the ones that are very obvious that everyone will think of. So as long as you're like sketching out different ideas a lot and writing things down, that's when your brain gets to come up with all these other ideas that most people wouldn't think of. And then rendering verbal into visual. It can be kind of difficult if the client is saying like, make it pop, or I want it edgy, but they don't really say anything else. I always ask clients for inspiration. Then from there, usually you'll show them and then there might be revision revisions. There might be more revisions off the revised first initial concepts, and then you give them the final. If they don't give any inspiration besides just like, I don't know, I just want it to pop, I will take those words and research poppy designs or like edgy designs and kind of get a feel of different types of poppy designs or edgy designs, and they'll go, oh, actually I like this one, let's go this direction, can we see more concepts like that? And then I'll go in that direction. If they can give you inspiration, that's the easiest because you can definitely see where they want to take their project. You guys can go from there. As you can see on this channel, I also like to do brush lettering, which I guess is an aspect of graphic design, but it's kind of its own thing, but I took that and just applied it to my work. Meredith asked, how do you do your lettering and designing? And then Isabel said, I don't know if this is related with graphic design, but how do you do brush lettering on Procreate? I'm not a pro at this at all. I literally just started a few months ago, but since people have been asking, I started off using pens. I'll leave the links in the description for everything. The only reason I use Procreate is it eliminates a lot of steps that I would have to do if I was doing all the hand lettering by hand. So that's why I use Procreate, and that's how I use it. Claire Marshall actually put out a tutorial on how she uses Procreate, which I think it's very similar to how I do it. So I'll have that linked in the description because she's probably much better at explaining it than I am. Yeah, I'll just link that in the description. Okay, now I'm gonna be talking about the hardest things about graphic design. Hannah, hi Hannah, asked, what's the hardest thing about graphic design? That mostly depends on the person. It could be taking critiques if you don't like that aspect of it. It could be concepting ideas, and it could be revisions. For me personally, I think the revisions are what really gets to every single person who's in graphic design, because like revisions could be real quick or they could just last forever and ever and ever. I think everyone would agree that revisions are just the worst part because they can just go on forever. And with all of that being said, that is basically it. This is everything that I've learned. Just remember to be honest with yourself if this is something you truly want to do, because it is a lot of hard work. It's not just like playing around on the computer, which I think a lot of people think it is. It takes a lot of hard work, but it's very rewarding. So basically, I've just been recording for an hour and a half. Hopefully I can cut this down so it's like actually reasonable to watch. But yeah, I hope this helped you, and I'm just gonna end this right here because you're probably tired of listening to me rant. Thank you very much for watching. If you've liked and subscribed and all that, seriously, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me, and I will see you next week for my next video. Bye!